right there, Ram? Oh, I just got out the dam and dried off and now I jump back in the dam. Yeah, action. G'day guys, got another pros and cons video for you. So today we're looking at my newest shotgun, which is the Verney Caron Veloci Super Magnum waterfowl model. So just a quick rundown on it. It's got a 3.5 inch chamber, synthetic stock, Realtree camo finish, 30-inch barrel, and it is a Category B firearm in Victoria. So for those who aren't familiar with it, 4-shot magazine and lever release action. So to load it, chuck a shell in, hit your mag release, hit the lever and away you go. And then after each shot you're going to cycle it by actuating the lever, no different than any other lever action. So first up for the cons, probably the biggest drawback for using this as a general purpose shotgun is it only cycles with heavy field load. So from what I've found is you're going to need at least a 36 gram high velocity shell, something around 1500 feet per second, or for your standard velocity shells at least 42 grams. So you're not going to take this out on a weekend, shoot some clay targets or things like that with a 28 gram target load. You're only using the big serious stuff out of this thing, which depending what you're using it for may or may not matter, but for a lot of people that's going to be a pretty big drawback. Okay, next on the cons list, it comes with a factory hard case. Now that's generally a pro, but the factory hard case that this gun comes with, it only fits the shotgun when it's disassembled. So disassembly and reassembly is not particularly time consuming, but the issue I have with it is the way the gas piston seals on an O-ring. If you're constantly taking it apart, putting it back together, inevitably at some point you're going to pinch the O-ring, you're going to have to replace it. Quite possibly you're going to have it happen out in the field and then your gun's not going to cycle. So for me, I'm never going to use the hard case that's supplied with it, and I kind of wish that it was just a little bit cheaper rather than having the hard case supplied, but that's just my personal opinion. There we go. Just get a close up of that O-ring, I guess. I don't know if that's in frame or not.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Next up on the cons list, so for a shotgun this is quite heavy. So empty it weighs 3.45 kilograms, which you're looking at about 400-500 grams heavier than most other comparable shotguns. So it is a lot of heft, especially if you're going to take it out after quail or something where you've got to walk a lot. Does still swing quite well, but I just thought that was worth mentioning that it is quite a heavy shotgun. Next on the cons list, so this is more just me nitpicking and things that I personally don't like to see on a high-end firearm. The operating lever and the trigger guard are both plastic. Now they're probably a very high quality plastic, probably never ever going to break, but I just don't like to see plastic on operating mechanisms when in my mind they should be made of either aluminium or steel. But that's my personal opinion. Doesn't detract from the function of the firearm, but I just don't personally like seeing it. Okay, there's just a couple of neutral things that I wanted to throw in there that didn't really fit into either category. So the first one I've got is the cost. Now, at the moment for one of these, you're looking at about $3,600 retail Australian, which it's a lot of money if you compare it to other gas guns over in America, like, you know, the likes of a Mossberg or a Remington, something like that. You're probably looking at 3 times the cost over here. Obviously we can't get those. But at the same time, it is a European shotgun, and if you went and looked at any European over and under, you're probably going to be looking the same price or quite substantially more, depending on what you're in the market of. But I did think it was worth mentioning. It's more expensive than your average beater, but it's also quite cheap compared to some other high-end stuff, so just wanted to throw that in there. Next up on the neutrals, worth mentioning. So this was sent with the wrong choke tube. So at the moment, all the testing I've been able to do is only with the improved cylinder choke. Verney Caron are currently in the process of rectifying that and getting the right choke set out to me, but I've had it for almost 2 months now, still waiting to see them. Not ideal, but I can't really, put in either category. It would be nice to do some more testing with the entire supplied chokes, but unfortunately I don't have them. What I can say though is with the improved cylinder choke, it does pattern extremely tightly for the choke size. So compared to my old Adler, improved cylinder is choking tighter than Modify with the Adler, if that's anything to gauge by. And last for the neutrals is the trigger pull. So it's pretty typical of a shotgun. It's neither good nor particularly bad, but you're not gonna go and take it out doing precise shooting with it. So did just think it was worth mentioning. Sort of little bit of creep, little bit grit. Is it gonna matter? Probably not. But I did just think it was worth throwing in there as well if you were perhaps gonna chuck a scope on and use it shooting slugs or something of the likes. Now onto the pros. So the first thing I've got listed down is the overall finish and build quality. So all the machine surface are really nice. No hideous tooling marks or anything like that. The synthetic stock feels nice and rigid. It doesn't just feel like melted down ice cream containers. It's also got some very nice rubberized grip panels. So, out in the wetlands.
Yeah, so long as the lightning doesn't hit us, we'll be right.
Bloody cold, nice on your hands, nice on your face. Feels very nice to shoot with this stock.
Good shot.
Other really good thing is it's going to hold up to any abuse you give to it. So inevitably, if you're hunting in the wetlands for any period of time, at some point you're probably going to go for a bit of a swim. And if you've got a really nice walnut stock, you're going to be a bit sad about it. With that, no, Rem, you can't fetch the shotgun. With that, it's going to handle any abuse you throw at it. So pull out your pull cord, clean the barrel, bit of oil in the action, and away you go again. Beautiful. Next thing I've got on the pros is the operating system. So given this is a relatively new style of action, I was a little bit worried when I first bought it that it was going to take me a bit of getting used to, but it's a very intuitive, easy to learn action, and particularly for someone like me who shoots a lot of long range rifle shooting, I tend to a lot of times use a side rider grip anyway, and my thumb's quite often just resting right there on the action lever. So that was another very good thing about this design. It's very easy to learn and shoot well.
Oh, nice. That sun was blinding me.
Next for the pros, so just a quick one. Magazine capacity. So with the 3.5-inch or 3-inch shells, you can have 4 in the tube, 1 in the chamber. So that's quite a lot of firepower. If you're out chasing rabbits or foxes or that, plenty of follow-up shots, or if you've got multiple animals, very handy to have. On ducks, realistically, you're probably only going to get a max of 3 shots off, generally speaking, but say hypothetically, if you clean miss your first and then you wing a bird on your second and it still needs finishing, you can follow it up then. Like for me, that's a very big positive. Next up, the receiver is milled for an 11mm dovetail. So if you want to mount a red dot or an optic, anything like that, it's already got the provisions to do so, which it's something that I actually want to have a bit of a play with down the track when I do receive the rest of my chokes. I want to experiment with running a full choke and my lead shells and see how effective at distance it will be for fox whistling and rabbit shooting, things like that. It might be a nice little crossover for small properties opposed to taking a rifle. Next up on the pros is the fact that it's chambered for the 3.5-inch shells. Now, a lot of this is probably in your head and imaginary, but it does put a lot of confidence in you just knowing that you have a much higher hit probability. Generally speaking, you're going to be able to connect a bit better at range, given your pattern's going to be still plenty tight enough to connect and bring an animal down. Oh, nice. Next thing for the pros is the rib design and the bead design. It's a very nice ventilated rib, nice machining lines across the top of it, gets rid of a bit of glare, and then a very small red bead sight. So very nice to point down, nice to get your sight playing. I really enjoy using it. And last of all is the exceptionally light recoil, and also I want to mention the design of the recoil pad. So what I really like about this is it has a hard toe of plastic on the very top, and if you're shouldering the shotgun, it's not getting snagged in your clothing. So particularly when you're out in the cold weather and that, and you're rugged right up, it's the last thing you want to get happen is get your shotgun hooked underneath your shoulder. That there will slide up and shoulder really nicely. So to conclude it, for me personally, I have no regrets buying this. It is expensive and over the top for a lot of people, but for what I do, it's a pretty perfect fit. I'm not out shooting clay targets or anything. Generally, any of my shotgun shooting is going to be hunting. So if I can have more firepower, that's a good thing for me. For a lot of people, they might be better off looking at the 3-inch chambered variants. They've got the walnut stock or a black synthetic stock with a 20-inch barrel, which for a lot of people, that's going to be a lot more suited. They can run lighter loads. So with those, off the top of my head, I believe they can run a 32 gram field load or a 28 gram high velocity shell. So just a little bit more flexibility than this. Obviously this, I can run up to a 63 gram lead load. For me, that's perfect.